In NASCAR, there are certain driver, team, and number combos that we'll remember forever. Dale Earnhardt and Richard Childress' number 3 car, Mark Martin and Jack Roush's number 6 car, Quinn Half and the 00 Starcom car that no longer exists, but many of these iconic combos almost never happened. In fact, in a not-so-distant multiverse, there's a good chance that many of the drivers and numbers and sponsors that we've all come to love never were a thing. Boy, I sure am glad that Carl Edwards won the 2016 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Championship and then bought RCR and kicked Austin Dillon out and started driving the 3 car sponsored by Coke. I really hope that there's nobody in another universe making a video about this right now. That would be kinda weird. And so, in this video, we're gonna break down some of the biggest what-ifs that never happened in NASCAR history. Up first is the man himself, Dale Earnhardt. Apparently, before the 1995 season, Dale and DEI manager Don Hawk had met with Robert Yates about having Dale potentially drive the number 28 Texaco car. At the time, Ernie Irvan was the driver, but was recovering from injuries he had sustained in a crash at Michigan in 1994. Dale Jarrett was filling in as a substitute driver and did so well that Yates expanded to a 2-car team at the end of the season, putting Jarrett in the 88 car when Irvan returned to the 28. Apparently, Earnhardt had 2 conditions that needed to be met for him to leave Richard Childress. He absolutely wanted to drive the 28 car and not the new 2nd car, and he wanted Robert Yates to pay him $1 million up front. You can guess that probably didn't happen. And so Earnhardt stayed put at Childress. But it's pretty wild to think that he may not have ended his career in the black 3 car. But at the very least, the Texaco scheme would have fit the Intimidator pretty well, but seeing Dale in a Ford, yeah, that would have been kinda cursed. But oddly enough, the Earnhardt's relationship with the 28 car doesn't end there. According to Dale Jr. himself, he wanted to drive either the 28 car or the 51 car when he first went to Hendrick Motorsports, if he wasn't able to take the number 8 with him, which of course, he didn't. Apparently, Dale Jr. and Rick Hendrick had both approached Robert Yates about using the 28, and Yates had even consulted Texaco about letting Hendrick have the number. But Texaco, despite no longer being a sponsor in the Cup Series, said that they wanted to keep the 28 car's history aligned with them, and refused to let Yates give up the number. As a consolation, however, Yates said that he was willing to let Hendrick take one of his other numbers, 38 or 88. But Jr. still wasn't convinced. He said 51 was the number that he was absolutely set on. The same number that Rowdy Burns drove in the Days of Thunder movie. But apparently everyone in his camp, including Rick Hendrick, was against the idea, saying that the number lacked any kind of Earnhardt connection, which is definitely true. So at the end of the day, Jr. went with his third option, 88. But there are some leaked trademarks and photos from 2007 that show what Jr.'s other numbers could have looked like. Hendrick apparently had also considered number 58 as a backup option. They had even prepared mock-ups for the number 8 if Jr. was allowed to take it from DEI. One version if they had to change the font, and one version of the original DEI font but with Hendrick's signature neon yellow. Apparently Dale Jr. was also asked to drive another car with an 8 in the number though. That's right, it's the iconic Joe Gibbs number 18 car. Before Gibbs had hired Kyle Busch, they were looking to replace JJ Yeley with Dale Jr. in 2008. But Jr. turned Coach Gibbs down for one reason and one reason alone. He offered him too much money. I'm sorry, what? But it's okay because Joe Gibbs will end up getting his share of talented drivers eventually, including Jack Roush's former superstars Matt Kenseth and Carl Edwards. But another Roush driver almost beat both of them over there, Greg Biffle. According to Greg on the Dale Jr. download, Joe Gibbs had offered Biffle to come drive the 20 car in 2009 after Tony Stewart announced that he was leaving the team to create Stewart-Haas Racing. But Biffle was in the middle of his best season yet in 2008, and he felt that if he had signed the deal with Gibbs, it would have been a distraction for both himself and the team, as they were right in the heat of a championship battle. And so, Biffle elected to stay with Roush until the end of his career. A decision that Biffle said he greatly regrets. And seeing how far Roush tumbled in the 2010s, it's hard not to see why. As for Joe Gibbs, this left him with no other option than to catapult old sliced bread from the Nationwide Series to the Cup Series with minimal experience, before he would eventually be replaced with another Roush driver in 2013, Matt Kenseth. Funny how these things work out. But the Roush saga doesn't end there, as another driver had a rather strange path to get there, Jamie McMurray, who also shared some juicy stories with Dale Jr. on his podcast this last year. According to Jamie McMurray, he was already set on driving the 26 car for Roush when his contract with Chip Ganassi expired. But as soon as he reached the Roush parking lot, he received a phone call from none other than Roger Penske, asking him if he would consider driving the 2 car with Rusty Wallace retiring. But Jamie told Penske that he was a man of his word and was sticking with the commitment that he had already made to Jack Roush. The contract that Jamie had signed was actually for 2007 though, not 2006, as he still had another year in his contract with Ganassi. But when then Roush driver Kurt Busch was arrested for DWI and released from the team, Roush wanted to hire McMurray early, but couldn't do it unless Kurt Busch was already signed with Penske to drive the 2 car that Jamie had just turned down. But also, Chip Ganassi didn't want to let McMurray out of his contract. So there was this weird 3-way gridlock happening, and long story short, Roger Penske actually ends up paying off Chip Ganassi to let McMurray out of his contract so he can go to Roush a year early and Penske can hire Kurt Busch. And despite all of this drama, where did Jamie McMurray end up finishing out his career? Right back at Chip Ganassi Racing. Sometimes things just come full circle like that. But still, could you imagine the timeline where Jamie McMurray was the driver of the Blue Deuce? What would have happened to Kurt Busch? Imagine the ripple effects that this could have had. Speaking of ripple effects though, one of NASCAR's longest lasting tenures was nearly cut short in the mid-90s. As in 1994, Mark Martin nearly jumped ship from Roush to drive Junior Johnson's 11 car. Huh. There really are a lot of people trying to leave Roush, aren't there? But in fairness, at the time, this was arguably the strongest ride in the Cup Series. Several of NASCAR's greatest drivers have piloted this car to championships and dozens of wins, including Cale Yarborough and Darrell Waltrip. But Mark Martin must have seen the writing on the wall as he turned down the offer to stick it out with Roush for another 12 years. Although Bill Elliott nearly won the title in 1992 driving for Junior Johnson, you can watch the Greatest Chokes video for more info on that one, the team failed to win a single race in 1993. And by 1995, the team would shut down forever. So unlike most of the drivers on this list who seem like they turned down a better offer, Mark Martin actually dodged one of the biggest bullets that he could have. Perhaps one of the most highly covered what-ifs of the past few seasons, though, is Kyle Larson's offer from Tony Stewart to drive the number 14 car for Stewart-Haas. Apparently, Stewart had been trying to sign Larson to SHR since 2016. Larson was actually Stewart's first pick to replace himself when he retired, not Clint Bowyer. But Ford was apparently never a fan of Larson and wouldn't approve it. Stewart tried once again in 2020 when Clint Bowyer planned to retire, but he couldn't win out in the battle against Jeff Gordon and Rick Hendrick, which in fairness to Tony, is a battle that almost anybody couldn't win. Who knows how differently things may have turned out if Larson were signed all the way back in 2016 though? Would Larson have become a champion at Stewart-Haas back when they were still amazing? I think it's safe to say that Larson's in the right place now, but back then it would have been interesting to see what he could have done in the 14. Speaking of Hendrick Motorsports, there is one other scenario that we have yet to discuss, and that's that Jeff Gordon's iconic 24 car almost never happened. According to Ray Evernham, when he was first signed to work as crew chief for Gordon, they were both told that the car number would be 46. Evernham even went as far to post pictures of the 46 car sitting in the Hendrick shop on his X account. However, one major problem prevented them from running the number: a licensing issue due to Cole Trickle's car from the Days of Thunder movie. Which is honestly a bit surprising considering that the 46 car from the movie and the City Chevrolet sponsor are directly tied to Rick Hendrick. Hendrick Motorsports even built and repaired the cars used for filming the movie. Despite Hendrick being directly responsible for the 46 car's existence, they still weren't able to get it onto the track themselves because of Paramount Pictures. So at the last second, the team was forced to change numbers to 24. Because 24 was actually the number used for Hendrick's test cars. So cars had already been built with a 24 on the side. However, the 46 would eventually make it to a single event, the 1993 Daytona 500, with the car being driven by defending Indy 500 winner Al Unser Jr. To this day, it remains the only time that Hendrick Motorsports has fielded the 46 car. So that's just a few of the biggest NASCAR rides that never actually happened. What are some other ones that you would have liked to have seen? Let me know down in the comments, but don't forget to leave a like on this video, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for all the latest news, rumors, and more on NASCAR.